So we got another solid episode of From, full of mysteries. After last episode's emotional devastation of the loss of Tian Chen, now we are moving things forward with the plot, and this is kind of a bridge episode. There's a lot of different little plot lines. There are some cohesive themes, but in general, it's just kind of like nudging us along on each of these storylines. The biggest plot line twist is Tabitha's at the end. So we're getting deeper into this world kind of having its own will and force behind it, and there are more and more commonalities between everybody who's in the Fromville place, and we're starting to see a lot of that come up. We're starting to see more hallucinations. Things are going a little nutso, and we're of course trying to deal with the psychological damage that is happening to these people from the Fromville supernatural force at play. And that's an example in this first scene here. The end of last episode, we had the phone ringing, and then Jim answers it, and somebody says, "I'm Thomas," and there's a kid's voice on the other side of the phone. And in this episode, we start right where we left off, and Jim does not believe it, like how I did. You know, it's not true, obviously, because Thomas is dead, and the place is just messing with him. And the place gets him to question whether or not he should have let his children play outside when it's going to get dark, which is something I said last episode, because yes, last episode we had Julie kind of acting a little strange, and she was talking to Sarah about how she's hearing voices now, and then she walks off with Ethan. I kind of assumed that there's going to be something a little twisted there, but really what we're seeing here is Jim being broken, and just in the same way Boyd is kind of like the sheriff of this town, he is the voice of authority in this town, Jim is that for his family, or at least that's what a father is supposed to be, is the person who keeps everything together, or parents generally. And since he's the only parent left, he really needs to be held together in the same way Julie told him, you got to get your stuff together because we rely upon you. And now the place needs to get through to him in order to also break his kids, which you see happening in this episode with Ethan in particular. He's starting to doubt things, lose faith. I think a lot of people might see that opening scene with the phone and it's just kind of underwhelming because it's just kind of another hallucination thing, instead of like putting it at the end of the episode like that, like a cliffhanger. It's supposed to be like this big driving thing. So that's the one little critique I have there. But in general, I like this theme of the place trying to break people psychologically. And he kind of lashes out at his kids, doesn't work out. And then later in the episode, you see how even when Ethan brings up the mother's death, Tabitha's supposed death, he starts to break down even more. So that's definitely something that's going to continue on through this episode. So Tabitha is here with Henry, Victor's father, and she's been up all night looking at these paintings, trying to piece together any clues that she might have. And there's a breadcrumb trail for her to follow. Feels very deliberate. From that priest that told her to look in the lunchbox, which told her to come here. It's like this very specific thing that she's supposed to be doing. And she ends up rejecting it by the end of the episode, losing faith in it. And that's what leads her back to the place. So it's really, really, I think, a nice, clever twist on the plot line here. So she really is out in the real world. It's not all a trick. We'll get back to that later. And here we're back with Victor, and he is measuring the trees because in previous seasons he was talking about how the trees were moving, things were changing, and he is the only one who's like tracking that, and he counted the paces between the different trees to measure that out. So I think that this is just here to remind us of that and just show us Victor's mindset right now. And later in the episode, it seems to lead to something where he's talking to Sarah and asks about a bedspread, but we don't see what happens with that. So it kind of felt like something was missing from this episode, but I'm assuming we'll see it in the next one. So here we have a discussion of Boyd's plan, which I was really excited to see them try to capture one of the creatures. And I thought, based on the title of the episode, I kind of assumed that that's what we were going to do. You know, the title of the episode is Mousetrap, so I thought that's what we were going to do, but it turns out that the citizens of Fromville are actually the ones who are getting caught in a mousetrap. So in several ways in this episode, the trapping is really the theme that runs through everything. So They end up not doing it. Donna comes in, makes the point that, they can't do this with a half-baked plan. This sounds crazy. Boyd's a little desperate. He's starting to get broken psychologically by this. And that's, I think, just saying what everybody's thinking, essentially. So here we got Fatima, and her pregnancy seems like there's something wrong with it. She's eating rotted food because she's getting those strange cravings. So we're wondering if there's something wrong with the baby. Like, is there a monster inside her that is growing? It almost seems like that's what we're going towards, but maybe that's just what they want us to think, and they'll pull out the rug from under us. But she's eating this rotted food that they're composting, and Tilly just so happens to be there. And I've gotten weird vibes from Tilly all along. She seems a little bit too carefree for the situation that they're in. And it's kind of odd, and even Fatima has picked up on this. In this episode, she mentions that maybe she is actually innocent, but it really seems like she knows a little too much, and she's inserting herself into situations a lot. She gave the drugs to Marielle. So now we're going back to where the food is, and there are these strange, I called them scarecrows, and Jade makes the point that they are placed in such a way that they could be using them like the talismans, and that's what I speculated last week as well, that they were using these to ward off any evil monsters. So I think that that's what it's supposed to be, and even in a lot of cultures in the past, there was this kind of same habit that they would have these to ward off evil spirits. So definitely we're seeing just another interpretation of that concept. And that, I would speculate, is what is keeping the food safe, like I said in last week's video. Now here we're with Ethan, and he's saying what's going to happen to Mom's body. And Jim just gets broken by that. And obviously it is not helping. And the phone rings again. He's being messed with. And then another thing, Henry's wife was an artist. She has a bottle tree. Obviously, there's a bottle tree in Fromville as well. That's the faraway tree that led her to the lighthouse. So there's an original one in a park somewhere, and they need to go to that. Again, it's another breadcrumb, something in the backyard, and then there's something in the park. It's just, we're going here, we're going here, we're going here. It just feels a little coincidental. She even mentions that it's not a coincidence. There are supernatural forces at play in this situation. So we have another hallucination scene with Father Khatri, and I just keep wishing he was still in the show, man. What a great character. And he's kind of like the conscience for Boyd in this moment. I kind of speculated that these were like spirits sent by the town, but maybe these are like the good spirits, Is it actually Father Khatri? Is it a hallucination? Is it like some other force in the town wearing his face? Maybe it's the same force that is the boy in white or something like that. It's hard to really say at the moment, but I like this conversation here and just talking about his crazy plan. And I love this idea that they need something to remember people, because we had that conversation by the pool last episode where he's like, I don't even remember whose truck this is, and we need something to remember people by, because the graves that we have don't have markings of any kind. So I love that idea. That's a beautiful thing. And we smash cut directly to Sarah trying to fix her brother's gift to her. So something that he made, and she's trying to fix it. So that's, again, just another thing to remember somebody who's gone. So I think that that's great. And she obviously is responsible for that. So she's carrying the guilt of that loss. So I think that those are smashed back to back very purposefully. And here we got Victor coming in, and he's like, do you have a bedspread? And then we don't come back to this, so we don't know what that means, but we smash cut to another bed. So they're definitely doing these transitions purposefully. So Fatima's just obviously got spotted by Tilly in that scene where she's eating the rotted food. And then Tilly's like, hey, I got strange cravings when I was pregnant too. I was licking eggshells. So that's a commonality between two different people in the Fromville, and we get back to that theme with Tabitha later. So that's another recurring theme in this episode, and it really feels like she's trying to insert herself in this scene to help Fatima, but sinister things happen later, but she seems surprised. So is she putting on her performance? Is she genuine? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. But red flags going off left and right that she's not being genuine, but maybe that's just to throw us off the scent. So they're talking about the pregnancy, and she's concerned, and she's opening up, It's a scene you definitely feel for her. And then here we got another scene where in the car there is a bracelet, and there's also this tape that is stuck in there that is the same song that Tabitha and Jim bonded over. It's their song. It's Henry and his late wife's song as well. That's too big of a coincidence. There's a bracelet, and the friendship bracelet is the same as the one that they made for each other and that Tabitha found in Fromville. So all these coincidences line up, and it explodes at the end of the episode. So we're gathering food. They drew straws. Jade's not helping. He's obsessed with the visions he's been seeing, and then he wanders off in the woods. And this was kind of funny to me. Like, they cut away to the urine stream for no reason at all. I don't know why they did that, unless I missed something. That was the funniest part of the episode to me. I had no idea why that was there. I don't know. Oh, and one other point I forgot to make was at the beginning here, you see Julie and Ethan feeding the animals, and they're not putting the animals in the barn. That makes no sense after what happened in the first episode of the season. Why aren't they putting the animals in the barn at night? Seems like a huge oversight on their part. So that's definitely that is something I would critique. That's an issue. That's not right. I don't know why they would do that. But anyways, now back with Jade. He's arguing with somebody whose name I forget, but he's given us problems before at the common house. And they're working together. Jade's not helping. He's like, hey, you're acting like you're better than us because you had all this money with being a tech bro or whatever it was, selling your company. And Jade's like, I'm seeing things. I've seen things. And then he goes off and has a hallucination here. Somebody whose eye was skewered. Seems like somebody from the past, old style clothing. And skewered in such a way that is reminiscent of somebody in a past season who got skewered against a tree. I think it was more in their brain than their eye per se, but very similar type of injury. So that seems to be a recurring thing. And a theme later in this episode is like these are intentional. These aren't accidents. It's the supernatural forces at play that cause these things to happen. We'll get back to that in a second. He gets caught when he's hallucinating by the guy who he was arguing with, in the same way that Tilly catches Fatima. So these are more commonalities throughout the episode. There are definitely things tying all these things together. These happen in the same episode for a reason. So now we are with Kenny, and we got Christy trying to comfort him, and he's just not having it, which I think is relatable, honestly. He's like, I'm trying to focus on the here and now, and Christy's not grabbing food, so he's like, you're just here to talk to me, and we could have done this another time. And he doesn't even want to hear that. He just wants to move on. So she means well, but it's not getting through. But this argument that they have gets interrupted when Jade comes back, and he needs to leave because he's hallucinating, going crazy. And it's almost like the place realizes that they need something to bring them together. So there are two things at play in this next scene, because he runs off. It's almost going to get dark. He doesn't have time to get back to town. And Christy follows him and gets caught in a bear trap. And this is the conflict that brings them together. So there's, in a way, a benevolence to it, because yes, she's injured now and needs help, but all these people that were at odds are now coming together to solve this problem. But also, there is the fact that the solution to this is to break down these talisman-like things, these scarecrows, as I called them, in order to break the bear trap, because the release breaks and they can't break the chain in time. So those all come together to say, yeah, I think that the place wanted these people to come together to work in this problem and also destroy that. But I have a feeling that destroying that particular scarecrow is going to lead to the food going bad, because that's what's happening elsewhere. So I think that might end up biting them in the butt. So now we got Ethan. He's cleaning dishes, just how Tien Chen would have wanted for the diner. And then we got the bus driver, whose name I forget, I'm sorry, but she was the bus driver last season. And now she comes in here and sees Ethan there. She's trying to help. And then, she's having doubts of her own. And then Boyd comes in and has his speech that we got to believe that there's going to be something after this place, that we can leave this place. And Ethan comes in with kind of logic, kind of like the more mature, cynical logic, as opposed to this story. So there's a lot of holes you can poke in Boyd's story. He doesn't know that they're going to be able to leave, but people need to believe these things and have faith in order to have that next step that they can get through the next day. So that is the battle here, is faith versus, cynical logic. And we have the kid kind of breaking down. So I think that's, again, it's a good theme of this episode. And it just shows, the fact that a child is pointing out the holes in this logic because he does not see the bigger picture that they need this story in order to continue on. So I think that is an important scene in the episode, thematically speaking. And then we have Fatima and Tilly. Tilly wants to do a tarot card reading. Fatima doesn't take it seriously, and then she's convinced by Tilly. And then they're about to do a reading, and then we have a kind of crazy scenario where this weird raven thing smashes through the window and wakes up the guy who only just now is getting to sleep. And then we have it smashing into the wall in a very bloody fashion. So it's too coincidental. It's definitely a bad omen, and who knows what's going to happen there. But I want you guys to notice that the guy who's asleep here, he has a bird on his shirt. So there's something going on there. I don't know what that represents. I don't know if that means like you're tapping into things you don't understand, or the tarot cards are like some sort of curse, or if it means a sign that the baby is actually very evil and bad, something like that. So there's something sinister going on. Did Tilly know about that is a question I have, because I always think that she's a little sketchy. Is it true that she knew that that was going to happen? It didn't look like it because she looks surprised, but she could be pretending. Who knows? I wonder if we'll find out anytime soon. I think we won't. So we're rescuing Christy, breaking the trap. We see one more hallucination from Jade, and he gets snapped out of it, but it's still something on his mind. We got Randall here seeing bugs. So we have the bird of prey or raven or whatever that was, and now we have these bugs that Randall is seeing. So both seemingly related to people who were taken over in their sleep. So I wonder if Julie's going to have something next episode. But now we have Boyd coming up with a new plan that he kind of wants to observe some of these creatures and see what he can learn overnight, and ask Randall if he wants to sleep in the sheriff's place. This was definitely an emotional scene, I think, right here. So Tabitha's starting to question, maybe I'm still in the place. Maybe this is all a trick. I don't want to play along with this. And then Henry is just, he's emotionally invested. Like, you don't get to just come into my life and change it this much and say all these crazy things and then just leave. Like, that's not okay. And then as he's trying to leave, he slams into another car. So because she rejected the supernatural forces that were trying to lead her to something good, that led her back to the place, because they have an accident, the ambulance picks them up, and then they end up back in the town because the tree is in the road. Now, we don't know 100% that they are in the place. I'm just assuming that based on how this ends. We don't see the ravens overhead, for example. That's a key fact. It could just be that they are actually just running into a tree in the road, which is a thing that happens sometimes. But I would honestly say, no, I think they're back in the town because Tabitha rejected the supernatural forces at play, and she's being punished for that by going back to the town when she was right on the cusp of finding the original bottle tree and potentially solving a mystery. So that's a big, big yikes for me, dog. It might be a little underwhelming to some people that the storyline ends this way, that we just kind of get little hints and then we end up back in the town again. But I'm sure it's going to lead to something else, whether that means another expedition to try to leave and replicate the same thing, or what the implications of bringing these new people to the town is going to be. There's definitely something down the line. I'm trusting them that it's going to be worth it down the line. But we'll see in future episodes. So let me know what you guys think of this one. I think it was another pretty solid episode. Really looking forward to next week, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.